Hello, I'm Amy, and this is Wired for Change. We're talking a lot these days about innovation, about new technology, big ideas, breakthrough models. But what we often don't realize is the quiet infrastructure that makes it all happen. I'm talking about risk and compliance. Ethics officers, auditors, GRC professionals, this is all part of a group of talent that is absolutely needed to make innovation happen. It's the often invisible guardrails that is required to build innovation responsibly and to lead companies responsibly. And right now, they're leaving. They're retiring, they're burning out, all while new regulations, new AI, cybersecurity implications, cyber threats, they're all multiplying by the week. So, what do we do? In this episode, we're going to explore what's happening with our wonderful expert today, Shruti Mukherjee, who is an expert in governance, risk, and compliance. And she's going to talk to us about the workforce crisis that's unfolding, what's really at stake, and how we can build a risk savvy culture that will help us really connect the dots between GRC and how to evolve and innovate and continue to sustain ourselves into the future. Because we don't just need big ideas, we need the people to execute on them responsibly. Thank you. Shruti, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate you having you here. You are a frequent voice in the community these days, and I know that people love hearing from you. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your background to start with, because you have some unique things in your background.
Thank you so much for having me here. I try to speak about, I try to engage. It's a work in progress, as I will say. My background definitely was not GRC when I started out. So I have a degree in engineering. I started out as an engineer myself. And when I was doing my degree, I had no plans or even no ideas that this profession exists. I started out as, I would say, more into a product based role in a cybersecurity organization and got exposed to cybersecurity in general. So I worked as a business analyst in the beginning of my career in an organization where they were doing, I would say, MSSP, as in we had our product based side where we were building the product and the service based team who were using the product to kind of deliver the MSSP services. And what I got exposed to over there kind of shaped my career where I am today, but also in other different organizations. Compliance is something which you'd often hear this notion that I happen to compliance. That's how I would put it. Compliance didn't happen to me. Happen to compliance. Um, Today, if I look back, I don't know where it all began. Maybe it was an organizational decision, or maybe I was just always made for this in a kind of way. But no, today I am in a very unique and diverse role where I am exposed to compliance, as well as cybersecurity, as well as privacy, and recently AI governance, as I would call it. And I'm loving and enjoying all bit of it.
Amazing. From what I'm seeing and hearing about, there is a shortage definitely in terms of people who understand, the evolving AI landscape. But it sounds like there are challenges in other areas as well. I was wondering if you could describe kind of this talent shortage that you're seeing in GRC.
Absolutely. So I think the talent shortage in general is because I would say the profession is not well marketed, as I would say, or not well communicated in many fronts. So that's one of the reasons I try to go out and put myself out there and talk about what I do and why it is important. You bring up a very good point about AI governance. So everybody is now used to either being exposed to AI or using AI or have already been integrated so deeply as part of their life with AI that they don't even realize that they are being driven by it. But with all these automation and innovation and AI comes a huge amount of unprecedented risk that most, I would say, regulated industries or most regulators in general are very, very worried about. So, and I say unprecedented because the nature of this risk is just unimaginable or incomprehensible because AI is shifting every day. so is the risk. Now, on the flip side, we don't have enough manpower, or I would say professionals in this profession, because we don't talk about the profession enough. And even though we talk about it, we do not talk about it in a way that it should be. In general, compliance, or I would say GRC, includes governance, risk, and compliance. Governance and compliance is marketed in a way that it's a very complex set of rules that is dictated by certain organizations, by certain, I would say, countries, or however you want to see it. It's always something that people don't want to get into or people fear because it's just, nobody likes to be put in a box. Nobody likes to be driven by another set of rules. We already have too many of those happening to us on a daily basis. So, whenever someone sees or hears a complying, that means, oh my God, I have to listen to these rules and have to abide by these rules, people freak out. General human nature. So that's one of the reasons compliance itself, it's like it's too much. And then comes the whole aspects of how compliance professionals over the year has overcomplicated it. What I'm trying to get to in a nutshell is you put these two together, human nature and compliance professionals overcomplicating it, you get a mix up so bad that folks who are passing their new degrees are not even looking at it. The risk is unprecedented. People are not even looking at this as a profession. That's not a mixture we want to have for our future. We have to absolutely get ourselves out of it and think about a future where people should be there to manage those risks.
Thank you for that. And I guess another possibility is if sometimes people have experienced, rigidity where it doesn't seem to be warranted because perhaps things weren't updated or understood as well as they could be, and then sometimes maybe that's a talent shortage
Yeah.
or an understanding kind of shortage around things. And so, not a great experience always with compliance. Do you have any stories to help illustrate like what that kind of looks like in an organization?
Absolutely. So one of the stories that I had early in my career that kind of opened my eyes and path towards how this is all perceived is like I was trying to draft some of my initial policies, and when I presented that to my executive level, like after going through my managerial level, things were not bad, but when I reached the executive level and our executives take a read at it and they come back as like, what is this? We don't understand it. I'm like, what you don't understand about it? It's very explanatory. It has all these ideas or all these guidelines that you have to follow as an organization and have to get to somewhere. I had a really good chat after that. My executive was really kind enough to spend time and help me kind of redraft it. And the main message was the language that we put in a policy, and I'm keeping a policy as a very, very general experience. It's already, we're complicating it in a way that most people do not even talk like you and I are talking right now.
Mhm.
We would never talk in a language like this. And even if we do, I don't know if most people would be able to comprehend. Our goal as compliance officer here is to reach to everybody in the organization, is to get their compliance, is to make sure that they understand and they comply to that rule. If the language that we are putting in there is so complicated and it's not comprehensible, the job is already done. It's just going to get downhill from there.
Mhm.
So that's one of the experiences. It happened early in my career that kind of navigated me to rethink this whole thing.
Mhm.
Like, I'm not saying do not follow compliance and do not follow the regulations. Absolutely. They're the reason that we are safe today. We're in an environment protected. But do not make it overcomplicated, because at the end of the day, your goal is simple: to reach everybody, to make sure they understand you and follow those compliance.
I want to make sure that, for some of our listeners who may be kind of broader in terms of their backgrounds, for them to understand some of the benefits of compliance. This is bit of a marketing for you,
Yeah,
Shruti, and
absolutely.
for all my friends in compliance. What are just quickly, what are some of the benefits of compliance? Because it can be arduous for some people. It can be challenging depending on how it's deployed in your organization.
Yeah.
Maybe just a couple of examples.
So compliance can vary depending on which organization, which industry that you belong to. I have been exposed to several. I have been exposed to quality compliance, information security compliance, data privacy compliance, and very recently, AI governance compliance. I'll start with one of the most popular and I would say early in my career exposed one, quality compliance. So let's take a look at some of the most risky industries, as I call it, or we call it regulated industries, like pharmaceuticals, banks. They are heavily regulated. Why? To simply put, the risk of non-compliance is just too high. That means it's either financial loss or death of human life loss. So, this is where the compliance portion begins for them. It's if you don't follow certain rules or behave in certain way, you can risk human life or financial loss. Regulated industries, I would just take pharmaceutical as an example. They have different sorts of compliance in general. Some of the most imposed one is by FDA. They have 21 CFR Part 11, Annex 11, these kinds of regulations. Not going to go into the specifics of it, but essentially yes, they just make sure that you build, you test, and you protect and you maintain the product in such a way that they protect the purpose of human life. It's like you want your medicine to be safer for you. You want your particular device that is used, it's safer for you. At the end of the day, they are products. A medicine is a product. A device is a product. They are built by certain individuals, tested by certain individuals, maintained by certain individuals. If those individuals do not follow those dictated rules, those things can harm you. Compliance around those products, quality compliance, make sure that at the end of the day, they're safer for your ingestion or use.
So gatekeepers are not always a bad thing.
No, absolutely.
So how do you know, getting back to the challenge that we're discussing today, what are some of the indicators that there's a talent shortage in GRC? Is it a drop in educational programs and certificates, for example? Is it the fact that, employers aren't seeing sort of the people that they want to hire, good candidates? Is it, what you're hearing from your clients, Trudy? Like, what are some of the indicators?
So I would go back to some data, honestly. ISACA has been very vocal about it since the last few years, and there have been reports, I think back from 2022, 2023, 2024, showing significant like drop in audit and regulator professionals and not enough people being interested in this profession. And that's kind of a very, very warning call for me as well. I have attended many of their conferences where this has been discussed as an open thing. Like auditors, 50% of them almost are retiring in the next 5 to 10 years. But there's not even a half of them that are interested in this profession. Now, if I go back to the reasons, as you said, what is happening out there and why it is happening, of course, there are two facets of it. We cannot always make like hold the executives or the decision makers responsible saying they don't want to hire. Sometimes we are the one doing the wrong messaging, and by us I means the regulators, the auditors. I would go back to something that I previously said. We as a habit has a habit of putting or making things complicated. Going back to my example of the policy writing, if we try and kind of put some effort, first of all, to market the profession and try to kind of also attach the need of the profession with actual financial risks or financial losses, that's how the executive would understand. We don't generally do that. We tend to stick, and I take full responsibility of this because I have done my fair share of mistakes. We tend to stick to our compliance jargon, our GRC jargon, and kind of try to justify the cause based on that. No executive would understand that. They would understand like any other expense. Let's say an IT professional is trying to justify their expense. They have to talk money. You have to talk money. You have to quantify the risk of non-compliance and how it could essentially end up losing them their business. If you make it simple enough for them like this, they would understand and they would agree with you. So that's why I said I think the job is twofold. The accountability lies with you as a professional as well as with the executive. When two comes together, that's when the shortages will try to kind of assimilate. More people would be able to understand because we as professionals would talk about what it is and how to simplify it and what can we do better. And essentially, we can also, in the twofold, have detailed conversation with our executives and make them understand, hey, this is how things are, and this is why we need them. So I hope, I'm trying to kind of bring those two together because we cannot just say the executive don't want to hire a GRC professional in the team, which often is the case. But why is it? We have to kind of also look into that. Why is there a one person team or two-person team within an organization? Is it always because they don't feel like GRC is enough? Or GRC needs enough people, or they just don't able to understand quantification of that risk and of that financial loss or business loss.
I love your analysis of the accountability and where that belongs. I suppose I should expect that from a good GRC professional. Now, have you seen the career path rebranded successfully by anyone?
I have. More often than not, to my surprise, it's a person, I would say, not an individual who joining the field as a new professional, but an individual who has converted to this professional. I recently came across one of my auditors. He has, I would say, a 20 to 25 years of experience as an auditor and as a regulator, but he started out as an individual, as an engineer, as an IT professional. And then midway through his career, because he could understood, he had a kind of a similar background like myself. So we could connect over our mutual agreements and disagreements. So like he's one of my prime example because I've seen other professional who midway through their career has changed into GRC. But I would still say I myself, whenever I talk to someone who is a new professional and have been exposed to the field and interested, I try to encourage them. I try to show them the good parts. And do not get me wrong, I want to make it absolutely clear. Things get redundant, but so is in any job. So, absolutely, there are good days and the bad days and the redundant days. But there are so many things that GRC has to offer as a job, as well as why it is so very important to think about it today, is what should attract the professionals.
That's excellent. Thank you, Shruti. I want to talk a little bit about the complexity, like the rising complexity in GRC. You know, we talked a little bit about AI, a few minutes ago. ESG and cybersecurity regulations are evolving. How are shrinking teams expected to keep up? How is that going to feel? Like, what do you think will happen?
Absolutely. So I would say we just have to kind of keep pushing and figure it out. I don't know if I'm going in the right direction, but it like what I think what I can do at this point as an individual is take my ownership and accountability of what I can do and keep doing. How would it evolve? AI, the risk we discussed already, it's unprecedented, it's paramount, and the teams, just one person or two-person, is trying to hold it all together. Result? Burnout, And it's not just happening in cybersecurity, it's definitely happening in GRC. Professionals are quitting, professionals are retiring, and it's definitely impacting those professionals. But I would say, because I am very close to the community of people who are like GRC expert and trying to hold it all together, they're doing their best to keep the profession intact in the face of AI. But we absolutely have to, I would say, one thing that I have been doing myself, and one thing I know the other professionals have been doing as well, is relying on the community. And that kind of helps them move forward around that, and also kind of tackle the over expanding, always expanding regulations and jobs and rules and everything around it. More often than not, we talk to each other, we rely on each other's expertise, how somebody faced it. Somebody would have walked on that path before me. So we have conversations, we figure out. But I would still like to say, it is an unprecedented issue and an unprecedented time. So I will do my bit to remind why the profession needs more people more often than now, and why it is important to get those, I would say, energetic, new, young blood into the profession, get them interested, and get them going. Because otherwise, I honestly cannot comprehend a future where the risk is to the level that it keeps on increasing. It keep me awake at night, versus the protectors, the defenders, the regulators not being available there to protect it.
For sure. I wonder, there are so many organizations that are moving forward, so quickly because of environmental pressures or internal pressures, that there may be cases where, organizations decide to move forward even if they don't have all their bases covered, with compliance. And in that case, it seems to me that it would be important for them to assess their risk with that in mind. Um, they've got a bit of a
Absolutely.
gap here, and
Absolutely.
you're not even sure how big the gap is because they might not have the talent there to do it. That's quite a risk for them, depending on the industry and the size of that initiative and the data involved and all the interdependencies that are part of AI initiatives.
Yeah.
And so perhaps there'll be tools or ways to collaborate with others just to even say, like, look, these are things that we don't know. So they're a risk,
Yeah.
to us because we
Yeah.
just don't have that. If we decide to move forward, we need to understand that we're also accepting that risk.
Yeah. But I will say one thing that you said, it's very important. You are thinking about a use case where they already realize and they already are acting towards it.
Mhm.
More often than not, it's a reactive action than a proactive action. So I believe you have heard this notion that, like, cybersecurity efforts, and I'm using that field as an example quite so often. It's because I've been very close and exposed to it. Cybersecurity efforts begin after a breach has happened.
Mhm.
So it's more often than not, it's a reactive. I have heard professionals who are like, I like to work for an organization or with an organization as a professional, as a consultant, when a breach has happened, because everybody is on their toes and something bad has happened and now they're doing damage control. Same with AI. That's why all these regulations or all these, frameworks is getting out there. All the ISOs, all the impact assessment is being out there, because at the end of the day, we are like, since the commercialization of AI, we have been going at a speed that none of us can comprehend. We are building something none of us understand. And I said this in another one of my talks, is like, if a regulator comes to you and they say they have AI figured out, they're just lying to you. Do not believe them. Because like, even as a professional, and no matter what professional you are, if you say like you have AI figured out, I know every bit of it, you don't. None of us do. It's constantly evolving. It's a technology which has its own way of evolving, and every other day it's a new innovation. It's a new outlook, and there's just so many players involved. So it's completely unreasonable to expect one person or one regulator body to have everything figured out. Now, the only thing we can do is rely on each other, is also to kind of connect with each other and realize that we have a problem. If we don't understand that we have a problem, we cannot fix it. So at the end of the day, it's very important to come together, to talk to each other, to see and hear each other out about something that's evolving, and rely on each other's expertise to kind of, go through this together.
Which is something that requires trust and an environment that fosters that trust and relationship building. And so, would you say that compliance should ideally be involved on day one?
I would love to have that,
In
but
terms
let's
of
not kid
proactive
ourselves.
measures. Let's not kid ourselves.
Yeah.
That's going to be a clip.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, I would say absolutely. But I would say I would be unreasonable while I say that. Let's take a startup for an example. When you are first building a product or a company, what you have in mind is simple. You have invested in your business, your time and money, you want return. Compliance, it's not on your mind. And that's perfectly fine. First, you have to have a working proof of concept, which turns into a working product. Then you think about. The way I look at it is like compliance, most cases, is on those businesses' mind who have already have a working product and have a working customer. Unless your customer comes into the picture or the product you're building comes into the picture, there is no compliance. For example, if you are building, how can I say this, like a device for measuring temperature, for example, a thermometer, you know that it's going in an environment or in a way that is going to be established, like I would say it's a high risky environment. So when it comes into that environment and comes into the contact of human being, it needs to follow certain conditions. If you are building and working in that kind of environment as well as that product, compliance has to be on your mind. Regulated devices do not even get sold unless they have proper certifications, bottom line. But if you're building tech, and the tech is not going to be anywhere near any of those high risk environment, why would you have compliance from the very first day? So if you ask me, I would say it would hugely depend on what you're building and who you're building for. If it's for that kind of not base that you're targeting and the product you're building, absolutely, you have to have someone at the table, you have to have certain conditions and regulations. If not, then it can come very well in the game.
So ideally, there would be enough of a general awareness of when to engage compliance so that people would know,
Yeah.
when or be able to
that's
consult
the
someone. That's a bit
that's
of a
the
trick.
goal, that's the
Yeah.
expectation. But I still truly think that when someone is building something or when someone has an idea, more often than not, they already have, like, they're trying to solve a problem, find a solution. That means they already have a person or a group of people in mind that they're building this for.
Mhm.
That's the first bit.
Mhm.
That's the first awareness to figure out, hey, who is it going for? That should help you easily determine, do you need compliance from the very beginning or at the very end or somewhere in the middle? Just fit them right in. That's it.
Great. Do you have any, general advice for, executive leaders and boards from a compliance perspective?
That's
Especially in light of you've got like the growing sort of, complexity, you've got the shrinking kind of talent.
yeah.
Any sort of words of wisdom?
Absolutely. I think words of wisdom would be to be patient and hear them out. As I said earlier, it is also the accountability also lies on the individuals who are going to talk to them, but it is responsibility of those executives to also hear them out and understand the quantifying risk. At the end of the day, all any executives or board of director wants is a selling business. That means it's generating revenue and no problem whatsoever. Nobody wants their businesses to go under because of a reputational damage or a trust issue or a huge risk or a breach or a privacy issue. You have to understand that that's the job of a compliance professional, to make sure that you're protected, an auditor to make sure that you're protected, your business is protected. All they have is they have in mind is your business's protection, your protection as an executive. So trust them to do their job, but also support them because they definitely need it.
Great. From the perspective of working across other domains in an organization, other departments, do you find that a multidisciplinary approach or a collaborative approach is something that is needed maybe more now than before?
I would 100% agree with that. That's because we are in the face of so many unknowns. So I can talk about myself. My engineering degree has helped me understand how a product is built and how it passes quality checks, how it's tested, how it's maintained. That kind of gives me a whole new level of sneak peek, if I can call it, into the details of things. It helps me also confidently talk to engineers who more often than not think compliance professionals do not understand what they do and have nothing to care about. But trust me, we do. We understand how important their jobs are and how much of a deeper task they do. We don't want to take more of their time, but everything that we are trying to do is also to make sure that the business is safe. So, yes, I would absolutely say. And when it comes to AI, and I want to relay this as well, it's important to understand or to get some level of understanding as a regulator, to have some level of understanding about AI and technology itself. That means not saying, oh no, it's too complex, it's too technical for me. Don't shy away. There's enough learning resources, enough information available out there to turn your black box into a gray box. It would help you to kind of, minimalize or also kind of simplify the risks for you and have a better outlook altogether.
I love your background in engineering and how that really translates to your work. As an engineer myself, I really appreciate. I would love if I was working and building something, I would love to talk to someone in compliance who also had an engineering background because
Yeah,
it's so helpful for the translation.
absolutely.
Because that translation is not an easy one necessarily to look at. The digital implications of something, for example, or the technical implications of something from a policy perspective. It's many steps for someone who is not kind of versed in the technology side of things.
Yeah.
So it's an amazing thing that you have. So, on that note, I wonder, like, what other mindsets and skill sets do you think would be valuable for the modern GRC professional, for people who are thinking about getting into this career?
Absolutely. Um, the way I see it, very simple. You have to have a few, I would say, non intrinsic characteristics. You don't need to have a lot of educational background per se, because I think everything that I've learned today, I've learned mostly on the job. You will learn things by going through situations as well as learning as you go. So I would say number one, an appetite for continuous learning and never be bored of it, because trust me, the regulations will keep on changing, the technology will keep on changing. So the guidelines, those standards, and those compliance would keep on changing. So you absolutely have to have a knack to be adaptive as well as focused on your continuous learning. The other aspects would be very like this is specific to an auditor. You have to have a keen eye. That means you have to, if you have a keen eye for figuring out something which nobody else could see in a document, that's your cue. You probably should be an auditor, or should be in that field, because it's a very, very important trick. Also, another important part, I would say, asking questions. More often than not, when I'm onboarding someone, and I recently said this to someone, like I would much rather have someone who is a new onboardee or asking me like 20 questions at a time than someone who is saying, yeah, I understand everything. That's another cue.
Hmm.
You have to be inquisitive. You have to have, so I think it comes hand in hand, the nature of being inquisitive and continuous learning. So, yeah, I would say these are the core skills that I see for anybody who is looking to have a successful career in GRC. Additionally, if you have an engineering background, if you have a cyber background, privacy background, general IT background, that's a cherry on top. That's definitely going to help you decode things faster, smoother, or have a better outlook at things. Even if you don't, that's perfectly fine. Whatever background you bring, if you bring these small qualities together of continuous learning, figuring things out, having a specific eye on, noticing things, and of course, like being open to ideas and do not be rigid, I think that's the true form of a GRC expert.
Wonderful. Hopefully, we convert a few people out there who are listening to
I
the show,
genuinely
right?
hope so. Yeah.
Now, as a leader, like I believe you're building a team right now, right?
Yeah.
Do you have any ideas for others who might be building teams or might have teams that they're wanting to nurture and grow to become as impactful as it can be?
That's a very deep question.
It can be aspirational too. It can be
No,
things that
absolutely.
you'll want to do or you
I
think we
think
should look at.
I would say I take leadership very personally because I see my team as a reflection of myself.
Mhm.
Sometimes we see, and this is a great thing that you said, leader, not a manager. I've seen enough of those discussions out there, leader versus manager.
Mhm.
It's very important to be a leader, not a manager. When you're building team, you have to figure out, first of all, what you want. More often than not, we don't know what we want. We just want another person to join the team. You have to have a clear mind of who you want, what sort of a person you're looking for in your team, and slowly kind of, if I'm talking about a regular hiring process, onboarding process, that's okay. Once you have them, when you onboard them, you have to be patient and you have to nurture them. As I said in the beginning, it's your reflection. That means you are trying to find someone and all that essentially is an extension of you. And I think there's also something I learned very recently. As a leader, the way I see it is at the end of the day, I just have one job when I'm building a team, someone that I can hand it off and walk away. When I'm looking for a team and building a team, I would try at the end of the day, if I'm spending 6 months, 1 year, whatever it is, I want to be that comfortable that one day I can give them that responsibility and simply walk away and they would be able to do the job better than I have. That's how I focus on leadership.
I like how you said better than you. We want them to surpass us, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I think that'll help us scale the whole GRC profession for the
100%.
future, as well. I really like your leadership mindset, for that, Shruti. Um, we've talked about a lot of challenges. We've talked about the talent shortage. We've talked about the rising complexity in terms of regulation and all the unknowns and the marketing requirements and like the needs to be able to communicate up as well as across very
Yeah.
broadly and work very closely with other teams. Any other sort of, for my water cooler question that I always ask, right? Any other key challenges that you're facing right now as an expert in GRC? Not that that's not enough, because that was a lot.
No, I think the one challenge that we face, and that's where that key point of who can become an expert comes in handy, is the fact that it's going to be, I would say, two things, not just one.
Sure.
One thing is you have to be a proactive person and you have to keep pushing. One part that comes by default as a GRC professional is you have to have a proactive approach because the function itself is reactive more often than not. So you have to be the proactive one. You have to reach out, you have to make that connection. Like I would say a huge part of the job is to get information out of people and making sure that things are being followed as it should. So you have to have that personality, you have to have that approachable condition, and you have to have very, very proactive as a person and nature which essentially that's something that I would like to see a lot more in the GRC professionals, like, proactive folks trying to put themselves out there, building the connection, talking to people. If all of us have that certain qualities, I think we would get a much more better reactions out of our engineers or executives and such. And the other thing I would say, the difficult part is you have to be okay with the unknown. AI, for instance. We are what, two, almost 3 years into the commercialization of AI. We still don't have fortified regulations. We still don't have fortified frameworks, but we're still getting through every day. We're still answering each of those questions coming from our customers, each of those information that is requested off of us. Not all of us have everything figured out, but we are taking one day at a time, and that's the job, making sure that each information that you can figure out in the face of the unknown, and every day you take care of it and you move to the next day.
Sounds almost doable, Shruti. Thank you so much, Shruti, for your time today
Thank you
on
for
this
having me.
episode. I
Absolutely.
really appreciate it. It's evolving, and I'm finding compliance much more interesting than I ever thought it would be these days.
I'm happy. Yeah.
It's great. I really enjoy learning from you. And the next time I'm involved in a digital transformation or a transformation of any kind, I hope that I have someone wise like you beside me while I do it. So thank you, Shruti.
I'm trying to, take that one day at a time and keep pushing and keep learning as I go through things. But thank you so much again for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Shruti. And that's another episode of Wired for Change.